In the Vatican, public viewing of Pope Francis opened coffin and on Friday afternoon after 3 days lying in a state of St. Peter's Basilica. China and Venezuela threatened their joint strategic partnership during the official visit of Venezuelan delegations to Beijing, led by Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. And the United Nations Organizations for Palestine Refugees announced almost 500,000 Palestinians forcibly displaced since the resumption of the Israeli genocide against Gaza. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. In the Vatican, public viewing of Pope Francis opened coffin and on Friday afternoon after the 3 days lying in the state of St. Peter's Basilica. In this regard, the Vatican informed that more than 250,000 faithfuls befell words to the Argentinian pontificate at the Holy See over the 3 days open casket viewing, which caused the schedule of the first 2 days to be extended to the early hours of the morning. For the last day of the week, the viewing time was shortened for the preparations ahead of the funeral. Honduran President Xiomara Castro visits St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican to pay her respect on behalf of the Honduran peoples to Pope Francis. The Honduran President visited the Basilica in company of her private secretary Hector Zelaya, Foreign Minister Enrique Reina, as well as the country's representative to the Holy See. Castro will remain in the Vatican during the entire farewell ceremony for Latin American Pope, act that will take place this Saturday. Up to 50 head of states and 10 monarchs will attend the funeral of Pope Francis. This is part of the 130 official delegations that have confirmed their attendance to the funeral mass in the Vatican City. Among the head of states attending the funeral are the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his Argentinian and French counterpart, Javier Milei and Emmanuel Macron. The Brazilian head of state, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, will also attend, as well as the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. The funeral liturgy will be presided over by Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, after which the coffin will be transferred to the Basilica of Santa Maria la Maggiore for burial. During a morning conference, the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, recalled through a video the connection of the Mexican people with the Virgin of Guadalupe.
I traveled to Mexico twice, once as Pope and once before in a Congress, and, when I was there as Pope, the things I remember the most was when I was sitting there looking at Our Lady of Guadalupe and the time passed. They had to take me out, I didn't realize it. You Mexicans are very lucky. Our Lady of Guadalupe, the Mother of God for whom we live, don't forget it, turn to her. They tell me that all Mexicans are devotees of Our Lady of Guadalupe, even those who do not believe in God. Continue being her devotees, may God bless you.
China rejected U.S. attempts to pressure Latin American Caribbean countries to reduce trade with the Asian giant. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Yankun said that trying to divide nations into opposing blocs goes against historical trends and global development. This after President Donald Trump suggests Latin American and Caribbean countries to follow Panama's initiative to cancel their participation in the Belt and Road, and even suggests choosing between Washington and Beijing. China and Venezuela strengthened their joint strategic partnership during the official visit of the Venezuelan delegation to Beijing. The delegation, led by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, held a meeting with some Chinese authorities where they reviewed the compliance and achievements reached since Rodriguez's visit in 2024. One of the most prominent meetings was with the chairman of the National Development and Reform Commission, Shen Xianye. Among the agreement signs, the financial and energy areas were highlighted, as well as areas such as science, technology, and agriculture. In this context, alliances were extended in sectors related to non-oil exports. Earlier Friday morning, 199 Venezuelan migrants arrived in Caracas as part of the humanitarian plan back to the homeland. The flight was comprised of 171 men, 19 women, and 9 children. This is the second flight of the week to return to Venezuelan homes. On Thursday, another flight carrying 316 Venezuelans arrived from Mexico. The Venezuelan government emphasizes this initiative is unique in its kind and aims supporting the protection of the victims of the U.S. economic blockade. In this regard, the Venezuelan Minister of Interior, Diosdado Cabello, denounced that a Venezuelan woman reported kidnapping of her son, a 2-year-old child who was not allowed to board a flight.
But among the women, there is a fellow countrywoman, a compatriot named Yorlis Bernal, who stated and denounced that while getting on the plane, they kidnapped her 2-year-old child. They did not allow the child to board the plane and put her alone on the plane. They forced her to get on the plane. She claimed her child and they did not let her. They separated her from her 2-year-old child. Children are being kidnapped in the United States. The government of the United States is stealing Venezuelan children, and this has to do with human trafficking. This has to be denounced to the world. Yorlis Bernal, the government of the United States is stealing children.
In the United States, a federal judge ordered the return of a second migrant deported by President Donald Trump's administration to the mega prison in El Salvador. Magistrate Stephanie Gallagher ruled out the U.S. government made a mistake with deporting of Christian, a 20-year-old Venezuelan, and ordered the administration to facilitate his return. This is the second time the U.S. justice system has ordered the government to bring back migrants to El Salvador's confinement centers without due process. The first being Salvadoran Kilmar Obrego Garcia, who had a court order protecting him from deportation and has been transferred from Seca to another prison in the country. In the United States, FBI agents arrested on Friday a Milwaukee judge accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities. According to the accusation, Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan escorted a man and his lawyer out of her courtroom last week after learning that migration authorities were seeking his arrest. The judge's detentions dramatically escalates tensions between federal authorities and states and local officials, whom Trump's administration has accused of interfering with its immigration enforcement priorities. Democratic Wisconsin's Governor Tony Evers accused Trump's administration of repeatedly using what he called dangerous rhetoric to attack an attempt to undermine the judiciary at every level. Let's take a very first break, but remember you can join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. Ecuador was the area of a series of seismic events that set off alarming amongst the population on Friday. Precisely, the first telluric movement was recorded as 2:36 a.m. local time, with a magnitude of 4.2 and an epicenter located in the Pacific Ocean, approximately 404 kilometers from Galera in the province of Esmeraldas. In addition, at 6:44 a.m. local time, a new magnitude 6.3 earthquake shocked the coastal region of the nation, with an epicenter located 17 kilometers from Esmeraldas. So far, the only material losses has been reported. Citizens inform of structural damage to buildings and partial collapses. But monitoring is being maintained for possible aftershocks or additional effects.
There are homes whose masonry is affected. The damage is on a third floor, and they have iron and zinc roofs. We are going to start working non-stop. We will go continuously, seeing how we can help. We also know that schools are affected. The walls of the schools need to be removed. We will do it with the machinery and coordinate with each person.
The rain emergency in Ecuador was extended this Thursday from 8 to 12 of the country's 24 provinces after registering 44 deaths. In this regard, more than 51,000 has been injured and 172,000 people have been affected since the beginning of the year. As a result, the emergency declaration was extended for 60 more days in the 8 provinces that were already under this measure, and the Indian provinces of Bolívar, Cotopaxi, Chimborazo, and Pichincha were added. The National Secretariat of Risk Management of the Ecuadorian government argued this decision to extend the emergency to more provinces in order to channel the resources with greater agility to optimize the attention to the citizens. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin met in the Kremlin on Friday with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss a potential ceasefire deal with Ukraine. The reunion was the second meeting between the head of states and Witkoff in the last 2 weeks, and their fourth one this year. The last one took place in St. Petersburg on April 11, lasting more than 4 hours. In this regard, Kremlin Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov explained that the negotiations are many sides since the subject is very complex. The government officials highlight how useful the talks have been and note that they were a reliable channel for communicating positions between President Putin and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump. In this regard, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Moscow, with U.S. mediation, is ready for an agreement on Ukraine, but some details need to be finalized. For the time being, Moscow and Washington are actively cooperating to resolve the Ukrainian crisis, while Kiev insists on its own conditions and does not want to make concessions. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said on Thursday that Ukraine wants to reach peace with Russia by force and called on the U.S. to use its power and influence to put pressure on Moscow. Russia and the U.S. established contact in the Riyadh on February 18 after the U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration. Another round of talks took place in Istanbul on February 27, and they met again in Istanbul on April 10. In Russia, an attack claimed the life of a GD chief of the main operational directorate of the Armed Forces, General Staff Yaroslav Muskalik, after the vehicle explosion in the city of Balashia, Moscow province. The country's investigative committee reported that the incident occurred on Friday in the parking lot of a residential building. The explosive device used in the attack contained more than 300 grams of TNT. China supports the International Atomic Energy Agency in playing a constructive role in promoting the political and diplomatic resolution of the U.S.-Iran nuclear issue. The Chinese permanent representative to the agency, Li Sang, made the remarks following a joint meeting in Austria with his Russian counterpart Mikhail Ulyanov and Iranian counterpart Reza Nahafi. China, Russia, and Iran emphasized that political and diplomatic engagements remains the only viable and practical path for resolving the nuclear issue. Let's take a last break, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on our most recent events. We'll find out short break, don't go away.
Millones se forjan nuevos caminos con la esperanza de un futuro mejor. Cruzan líneas imaginarias hacia lo desconocido. Conozcamos las historias de quienes viven entre fronteras. Todos los jueves, solo por teleSUR.
Welcome back. The United Nations Organizations for Palestine Refugees announced that almost 500,000 Palestinians forcibly displaced since the resumption of the Israeli genocide against Gaza. The international organization warns that refugee camps report overcrowding in unstable living conditions due to the lack of supply of basic services. The agency also indicates that a humanitarian crisis in the enclave is at its worst since October 2023, describing shelters as insecure and barely habitable. The Zionist blockade on the border is causing a rapid depletion of essential humanitarian supplies such as food, medicine, and fuel. On Friday, the United Nations World Food Programme delivered the last remaining food stock to hot meal kitchens in support in the Gaza Strip, as it has depleted all its food stocks for families in Gaza. Authorities add that soup kitchens will run out of ingredients by the end of the month. For weeks, the humanitarian situation gets worse by the day. Already back on March 31st, all 25 WFP supporters bakery closed as wet flour and cooking fuel ran out. The same week, WFP food parcels distributed to families that were exhausted. The UN agencies also deeply concerned about a severe lack of safe water and fuel for cooking. The Israeli regime has prevented the entry of any humanitarian supply to Gaza for more than 7 weeks. Over 116,000 metric tons of food assistance, enough to feed 1 million people for up to 4 months, is positioned at 8 corridors and is ready to be brought into Gaza as soon as Israel lifts its genocide blockade. In Sudan, several units linked to paramilitary groups' rapid support forces prevent the remaining inhabitants of the Samsam displaced camp from leaving after occupying it last week. According to the statement issued by the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the fighting has caused nearly 400,000 people sheltering in Samsam to be evicted. Following clashes between Sudan armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces have scaled dramatically in the northern Darfur state, with Al-Fastor and Samsa IDP camp as the epicenter. Between the 10th and the 22nd of April, the surrounding area of Al-Fasher and Samsam suffered constant artillery shelling, runs, and ground attacks, resulting in the death of hundreds of civilians. Protests continue in the Indian region of Kashmir over the suspension of the water sharing treaty between India and Pakistan. Protesters shenanigans against Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, highlighting placards reading, "We will not bow down to terrorism," and pictures of Indian leaders. This aims growing tensions between New Delhi and Islamabad is stemming from the attack in Kashmir that left 26 people dead. In this regard, the UN urged both sides to exercise maximum restraint and ensure that the situation events do not deteriorate further. Meanwhile, in New Delhi, multiple protests also take place with demonstrators carrying Indian flags and slogans against Pakistan. Protesters described the death of the 26 people in Kashmir, most of them Indians, as a terrorist attack. In addition, citizens of both countries started their return to their homeland through the Wagah border near the city of Lahore, Pakistan.
We want to give a straight message to whole world that India is united against terrorism, and we will leave no stone unturned until these terrorists get the punishment which they deserve. For this, for the unity of the nation, and for a proper retaliation must be given from the Indian Army.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials, on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.